people usually have this habit of thinking that anxiety is outside of themselves. For example, they think they're anxious because of the job they're in, because it's stressful, or they think they're anxious because of their parents, for example, or
a spouse or a husband.
Or maybe they think they're anxious because of the social situations they put themselves into.
Mm-hmm. And they usually try to find solutions to their anxiety outside themselves. For example, they change the city or a house, or they change maybe the partner, or they buy a dog, a cat, a snake to feel better.
Or they start changing their lifestyle, right? For the lifestyle to fit their anxious personality.
Yes, it's a good point, because some of them try to, the feng shui, to reorganize the environment of the house to get a better energy. But despite all this, anxiety is not cured. Anxiety still persists.
And this is because of the fact that anxiety comes from the inside, let's say, from a person's thinking.
Yes. The cause of anxiety is thinking, and anxiety symptoms are created by that mental noise that a person can hear constantly in his mind.
So the moment a person finds a way to quiet that mental noise, that's the moment when the anxiety symptoms disappear or start disappearing.
Yes, for sure. Yes, all of anxiety symptoms. And people should know that it's not the exterior which is agitated, but is the interior. So a person feels agitation when his mind is filled with thoughts, because thoughts are movement, and doesn't matter if you have negative, positive, or neutral thoughts. All of them are a constant movement. Mm-hmm. So the body will be also in a constant movement without silence and, of course, time for himself to relax.
Yes, this also causes great stress on the body and also a lack of energy. And this is what causes a person to be tired.
Yes,
right?
And fatigue.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Because the big flow of thought that runs through a person's mind moment by moment drags away all of the person's vital energy. Let's say.
Yes. For the mind to constantly chatter, it requires a huge amount of the body energy. Mm-hmm. So for a person, it's like more than 80% of his energy goes in his mind. Mm-hmm. And you can observe this at our clients. For example, they spend their time at home in the bed, and they are lacking of energy. Mm-hmm. So they aren't able to do something physical. They don't spend their energy in a physical way. They just stay in the bed like watching a TV, but they are still tired, and yes, they don't have any energy. Mm-hmm. So of course, yes, this is the reason. All the energy goes in that thoughts. Mm-hmm. I can say that the human energy is wasted on thoughts, yes, which are not useful.
Mm-hmm. And once you find a way to stop those thoughts, actually the opposite happens, because people usually associate the idea of empty mind with lack of creativity, for example. But the opposite happens, because a person becomes way more creative.
Yes,
the energy flows through him.
Mm-hmm. Yes, so this is the flow of life. when the full attention is here on life, the energy is not doesn't spend waste in thoughts, and the person gets filled more and more with the energy. Yes. It's like a spring in the life of a person.
Right, so now knowing that the reason for most of the people's problems actually comes from the inside, or the way that the person thinks, or
his thoughts.
Yes. It's logical to say that one must change himself first before trying to change his environment.
Yes, of course, because yes, the environment is secondary. And if you don't feel better, if you're not happy, you cannot see happiness around you. So the exterior reflects your interior. For example, if you are sad, you'll see everything around you that is quite sad. So if you're anxious, an anxious person, you will see danger around you where there are none. Yes, of course, the interior must be cleaned of thoughts and to reflect the reality as it is.
So what is the cause of this mental chatter?
The cause of the mental chatter, which causes the anxiety, is the ego, which is your thinking pattern. So this ego is like a storyteller. It creates fearful stories, worries, predictions, fearful predictions about the future, and so on. So in our approach, we stop the storyteller to speak. We don't change the stories, like we don't analyze the fears, but we make this ego to be quiet. So this is the first step. It's like you have an empty mind. So you empty your mind, you silence your mind, till your mind won't talk by itself.
And then you will be able to use your mind however you want, instead of the mind using you however it wants.
Yes, yes, this is the point. In a normal person, the mind constantly speaks about everything.
And usually the things it talks about are negative, because they are based on the person's traumas, right? The person's traumatic past and conditionings, right?
Yes, yes. And the mind is a mechanism that was developed in survival. That's why, through the lens of mind, a person interprets dangers where there are none. For example, if a person looks at reality and see a neutral stimuli, it is most probably to interpret it in a negative way for the reasons of survival. But this mechanism isn't useful anymore, and usually people are identified with this mechanism. So in this approach, we make this separation between the person and this mechanism, which is the mind. So we start by reducing that mental flow. And of course, in the beginning, all anxiety symptoms are eliminated. And afterwards, we work with that the thinking pattern not to create all these fears, all these thoughts. Like you said, we stop the mind and we learn people how to use it when they want, of course, as a mechanism.
So let's say if a person firstly a person has or learns a few tools that he can use to stop his symptoms, right?
To stop that mental flow, and of course to stop the symptoms, yes.
But if a person doesn't treat or doesn't address his thinking pattern,
The
doesn't
storyteller.
correct this storyteller,
Yes.
there is a chance for those symptoms to reappear in another form, right?
Yes, with other stories, with other fears. For example, you treat like a social anxiety, and the person will develop another anxiety. For example, a job-related anxiety or another type. Yes, and you also can see this in addictions. So you treat a person from an alcoholic addiction, and afterwards he will develop another addiction, drugs, nicotine, or something else. Yes. So this is a perfect example which explains this thing that specialists usually don't address the root of anxiety, which is this ego. So this is the root, and the fears are just the stories. So you don't correct the stories because the root will survive and will create more and more, but you go to the root and stop the root to create all the fears.
How do you correct the thinking pattern?
We teach people how to live in the present moment. Firstly, by using some techniques that use their attention, we teach them how to see the present moment with their full attention here. And here they will see that anxiety is not real. And after they see the present moment, they'll get a new way of living life, not with their attention in thoughts, but here in the present moment.
So with time, when people learn how to live in the present moment, this thinking pattern will correct itself.
Yes. So this is a new approach, and it's simple, direct, not hard. It implies some practice, but it's from a view of clarity and reality.
And it's a way to completely treat anxiety.
Yes. Yes, because in reality anxiety doesn't exist. And once the person really sees this, anxiety will completely vanish. Bye.
Bye.